Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Nambo channel, and here's a headline from crypto media outlet You Today. Ethereum's Joe Lubin defends SEC amid Ripple lawsuit. It seems to me that Joe Lubin here may have a bit of a false sense of security. Think about this. It's very difficult to find anybody that's operating in the crypto space that thinks that the SEC is just doing a bang-up job as it pertains to regulatory clarity in the space. It's very difficult to find somebody that actually thinks that. And so you got to kind of wonder here, is it just a fun little coincidence that with Ethereum, outside of Bitcoin, so Ethereum being the only altcoin that seems to at least have perceived regulatory clarity from the SEC, is it a surprise here that Joe Lubin happens to think that the SEC is doing a good job since he got a free pass? Because I'm telling you, this is an outlier type of situation here. Good luck finding anybody else in the space that thinks that the SEC is doing a fantastic job. But here you have the greatest coincidence in the history of mankind. Somebody that is a founder of Ethereum, which happens to have a free pass, thinking the SEC did a great job. Well, how about that? So anyway, I want to run through that. I also got a couple quotes from an article from a couple days ago from AB Crypto titled, "Here's what these XRP holders want to do because Ripple's not going to do it." And this headline was from before the awesome news that we got yesterday about John Deaton being granted amicus status. So he actually is going to be participating in the SEC versus Ripple case, which is just absolutely fantastic and huge news. But before going any further here, I do want to be clear that I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say. All right, I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby, just for fun. That's all that's going on here, damn it. And if you don't like it, you can just get out. And so, this story from You Today came about because of an interview that Joe Lubin had just the other day, and it was initially covered here from theinformation.com. This piece was titled "Consensus CEO Lubin, SEC isn't hurting crypto innovation." This is crazy stuff here. And I'll tell you this too before even covering any of this. Yes, so I do believe, based on these comments, that Joe Lubin feels very protected, but I really think it may just be a false sense of security. There are different people running the SEC right now, and especially the way Gary Gensler's going to town here, and especially what he'd said about Ethereum in years past, I'm not so convinced that Gary Gensler actually thinks that Ethereum is sufficiently decentralized and that there is no common enterprise. It seems to me that he would still think, potentially at least, that Ethereum is a security. And not that I want him to go after Ethereum, I'm just saying that Joe Lubin, the way that he's approaching this, Ethereum's not necessarily safe here, and he just doesn't seem to see that. But anyway, the crypto industry's leaders and U.S. regulators have few kind words to say about each other these days. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong has slammed the Securities and Exchange Commission for, quote, "some really sketchy behavior," end quote. SEC Chair Gary Gensler has likened the industry to the Wild West or a casino. But Joseph Lubin, 57, who co-founded the Ethereum blockchain behind Ether, Bitcoin's biggest rival, and runs the 500-person startup Consensus, is feeling more charitable towards the financial regulators that are threatening to patrol cryptos in frontier lands. In a Zoom interview from his home in Brooklyn, he said he thinks Gensler is under a lot of pressure and may deserve what he's asked Congress for: greater authority to govern the industry. Look, I'm telling you, Joe Lubin is just about the only person in this industry that thinks Gary Gensler is doing a bang-up job and should get more of what he wants: greater authority to continue running this way. He doesn't think that there's regulation by enforcement, and I'm telling you, he's not necessarily safe here. I'm not predicting that the SEC is going to come after Ether. I don't know if they're going to. I mean, hell, I didn't know they were going to go after Ripple and XRP holders either. Sometimes things just come out of the blue here. But yeah, if he thinks he's safe, he's got another thing coming here. And so the You Today piece even quoted him as stating, the following, wrote, "I don't believe the SEC is trying to squelch innovation." That's a Joe Lubin quote. "I don't believe the SEC is trying to squelch innovation." Well, I'll tell you what, whether it's intentional or not, that's the effect that's happening here. You know? And it's so funny because, you know, there is even an audio clip. I'm not going to play it in this video, but it was this one from DAI. And he's literally sitting here talking some years ago. Joe Lubin sitting here in this clip talking about how, because of regulatory uncertainty, specifically within the United States, Ethereum, it was initially not set up and founded in the United States. What in the ever-loving hell, Joe Lubin? Talk about 10 years like you're talking about both sides of your mouth right here. I don't see how this could possibly be intellectually honest. I have a hard time seeing how this could possibly be anything even approaching that right here. And it's very clear that this has rather a strong dampening effect on blockchain participants within the United States. And we don't know what constitutes a security as it pertains to crypto. I mean, look, if you applied the Howey test accurately, then you could figure it out, but only if you have a clear understanding of what constitutes sufficiently decentralized so that something would or would not pass the Howey test. And that's the part that we're missing. We don't know what it takes for something to be sufficiently decentralized here. And I'm not surprised seeing this either, given that Joe Lubin has been not a particularly big fan of Ripple. So he probably thinks that what's happening with Ripple and XRP holders getting attacked by the SEC, he probably thinks that's perfectly okay. In fact, I was just thinking back to an interview where I saw, or maybe you wouldn't call it an interview, but there was a panel. I can't remember what the event was, but there was Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple CEO, and then Joe Lubin and somebody else, and then the host. There were 4 people on stage. It was like the beginning of 2019, probably in January, so almost 3 years ago, actually, at this point. And at some point, Joe Lubin got a little confrontational with Brad Garlinghouse and asked how much XRP they're selling, Ripple's selling to whoever they're selling it to, and obviously they're only selling to strategic partners. And so he was seemingly unaware that Ripple's the most transparent company in all blockchain. And then he cited that they're very transparent about it. And he talked about their XRP markets report. I remember all of this. And then he flipped it back on Joe Lubin, like Joe Lubin didn't realize the degree to which he himself is not being transparent. He's like, how much are you selling? How much ETH are you selling? And then he was so caught off guard, he was like, yeah, like that. And then he's like, oh, didn't see that question. Yeah, so it's just such a hypocritical thing. Like, to ask a question like that and then not even ask that question of yourself. That's where he's coming from. But not everyone is thinking quite this way. Take a look at this headline. This is from December 28th of last year. XRP is not a security in its current form, says Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson. Now, Charles Hoskinson, in addition to founding Cardano, cryptocurrency Cardano, he's also a co-founder of Ethereum. So at least there's another, a founder here that seems to be a little bit more with it. And not that Charles Hoskinson is a fan of Ripple and XRP. There's been evidence over the years to indicate perhaps quite the opposite is possible here. But at least he recognizes that the SEC is not his friend and could come after him. He seems to get that, but it's just the case that Joe Lubin seems to feel a little bit more safe than perhaps he should. And then there was this from AMB Crypto, and this is just from a day or so, a couple days before we got the awesome news from yesterday about John Deaton being victorious, and the judge declared, yes, absolutely, you will be able to participate in the case on behalf of 22,000 plus XRP holders. But anyway, here's the headline. Here's what these XRP holders want to do because Ripple's not going to do it. And so it gets to one of these quotes that I'm going to share from John Deaton here, but the truth is that, Ripple's not going to, and it shouldn't be their case, but Ripple is not here to defend XRP holders. That's not their purpose. They're a company. They don't owe us anything, and so this is not some harsh critique, but they're defending their company. And yes, they're stating things that would be in line with your typical XRP holder out there. That would be favorable to them, of course, that. So there's some overlap, but it's not their mission, which is why it's great that ultimately now we know that John Deaton will be able to influence this case in a notable way. But there are a couple quotes from this article that I thought I'd highlight in here. This is from a recent interview. Here it reads as follows. The SEC filed its lawsuit against Ripple Labs in late 2020. Days later, Deaton explained that he filed a writ of mandamus ordering the government body to carry out its duty. And here's a quote from John Deaton on this. In this case, the SEC is making the absurd claim that all sales of XRP for the last 8 years, that every single one of them constitutes a transfer of unregistered security, including in the secondary market. which obviously is completely bizarre. And they actually, I'm not going to cover in this video, but they actually did talk a bit about the Ethereum connection. I've said plenty about that to this point, though. But here's another quote from John Deaton. While the goal is to, and he's talking about deposing ultimately William Hinman and see if you can depose anybody else. So it kind of be like an end goal here. But here's what he stated: while the goal is to depose them right now, we're just seeking to go into court in the Southern District of New York and represent ourselves and defend what we own, because Ripple's not going to do it and the SEC is not going to do it. Exactly. So even though the SEC is claiming that Ripple was perfectly capable and is perfectly capable of defending the interests of XRP holders, we know that's not true. That's not what their goal is, and that's why the judge did the right thing allowing them in. And it still is absolutely hilarious to me that, and not in a good way, that the SEC says Ripple has the interests of XRP holders in mind, when really it's basically the mission statement of the SEC that they're supposed to be looking out for investors. And they're like, oh no, we're not looking out for you XRP holders, you investors. Ripple's doing that. Well, what the hell does that tell you? That's why this whole thing is just so unprecedented. And it was nice to see that the judge recommended this. There was no case law to draw upon, and because look, the idea of the SEC going after a company for selling unregistered securities and then having holders of whatever the claimed unregistered security is coming after the SEC, that's never happened before. And there's tens of thousands of us that are like screaming, nope, this ain't right. And so it was nice to see the judge recognize just how truly rare this is. This is the first time in history something like this has happened. And that important fact, is certainly not lost on the judge, which is just something that's positive to see. So there you go. You've got, again, Joe Lubin completely clueless, thinking that he's perfectly safe, but like even though the SEC has allowed them to get away with what they've gotten away with to this point, there's a different SEC chair in charge. I don't see how he could feel that confident, because I bet you, if they do come after him, he's going to be changing his tune then. But the SEC clearly is not the friend of anyone in crypto except for Joe Lubin. That's pretty much it. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.